once again. I am your host, Becky Burke, Evil Becky Burke. And the reason why this time is not because Art is in PR, and it is because Art is very sick and Fred has swallowed a gigantic piece of pasta. At least that's the word on the street that I hear. So I'm going to be starting this out. Now, the Culture Trail Running Podcast is a place where we can get together and talk about all the fun shit that happens on the trails that most normal people don't care about. Our headquarters are located in the belly of the Beast Coast, Glastonbury, Connecticut, and our stories involve Northeast trail runners and Northeast trail running. The language you use is explicit and raw, so don't listen with your kids. And we have a special
From the
guest.
belly of the Beast Coast, Glastonbury, Connecticut, this is the Cultra Trail Running Podcast. We talk about all the fun shit that happens on the trails that most normal people don't care about. The language we use is fucking explicit and raw like the trails we run on, so don't listen with your kids! No kids. Cultra is brought to you by our Patreons and supporters, and we are 112% listener supported, and support is good.
Do you know I already screwed up? Because I was supposed to start by having our guest say something and them introduce the episode and have the music go. And I've already screwed it up. So
we don't even know who the
pretend-
guest is.
We don't. It's a surprise.
It could be anybody.
Oh, you know what? All right. We're gonna have, let's see. We're gonna have the guests tell us what episode this is and give us one random piece of information about them. And then everybody has to push pause and think of who this person is, come up with your guess, and then be honest. And you have to put it in on Facebook to see if you got it right. And then you can push play and you can find out who the guest is. So, drum roll, please.
Okay.
Here this person is. Hello.
Okay. Hi. I think this is Culture episode 322, somewhere between 322 and 324. Random piece of information. I spent my decadent youth in Connecticut. I'm a former soldier, and now I claim I'm an ultra runner. That's 3 pieces of information.
Ooh, I like that because that keeps it makes it broad, but yet it makes it doable. That's what she said.
I should have said a very average ultra runner at best. How's that?
Nonsense.
Yeah. Yes.
So everybody,
What's there for in
get your
upstate New
guess.
York? Were you stationed in upstate New York?
I was. 4 out of the last 5 years I was in the Army, Fred, I was at Fort Drum.
Fort Drum.
Because everybody in my family and extended family is from New England. And he said, I wonder how hard it would be to get to Fort Drum. And I reached out to my branch manager and said, hey, we're out here, after time at Fort Bragg, and we're out here in Ohio doing recruiting, and really wondering if I could get to Fort Drum. How hard would that be? Before I was off the phone, I had a request for orders going to Fort Drum in upstate New York, and that's where we retired to I spent a year in the Pentagon after getting back from Afghanistan, but we were still living in upstate New York at that point. So it was not hard to get to Fort Drum as far as being in the Army, which really wasn't a big surprise. Fort Drum is north of points of Canada in places. If you put it on a longitude and scroll it across towards Detroit, I think it's north of Detroit.
It's up there.
Yeah.
This mystery guest may or may not have a dog named Rusty, too, as far as I know.
Rusty's sitting right over there.
There you go.
Oh, all right. So introduce yourself, fine fellow.
Okay, my name's Tim Hardy.
Yay!
It's a pleasure to be on here. I've been on Culture one time before with a group of guests, and when Art reached out to me this week, I was ecstatic because I know what you got. I know I listen to you guys all the time, and it's basically the main topic is talking about ultra running as a lifestyle, and I it is a lifestyle if you spend any time doing it. And I really wanted to get to the bottom of two things here. Not the well, one of them is not the bottom of two things, but I really want to know why they call you Evil Becky. And the other thing was, yeah, Fred and I was kind of trying to wonder back to how long and Fred had spent time communicating on the Ultra list without meeting in person. But
It was quite a
that's one of those
while.
things that we may need Elon Musk to figure that out while he's doing a bunch of other stuff. So
We, I can remember when you first did Vol State, and I was like sending inspirational messages by the day when you were saying, like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was thinking, like, I've never even met this guy. Like, we've corresponded, we've commented on each other's posts on the Ultra List and stuff, but I don't even know Tim, but I felt like I knew you.
yeah, well, that
Oh,
vault, that when you've been on the Vol State course, even if you're not out there with someone, it's like I'd followed you when you'd done it, and it's like that's one of those races where if you've done it and somebody else has done it, there's some commingled DNA somewhere in there for sure,
Yeah,
without question.
yeah.
So
and
that's a
that
great
you
event.
did Vol State in, was it 2022?
Tim's done it a bunch of times.
So when you were on the podcast, it was after Vol State, right?
I did the first time I did Vol State. It hadn't been that long. I mean, Vol State had been around a long time, and I finally got off my fourth point of contact. Said, I have got to, I have got to get to this race because I'd followed it solidly for a decade. I mean, for at least a decade. Following people doing it, and even the last time I was deployed, I was following it rapidly online. But the first time I did Vol State was in 2018. Then I did it in 2019. I did it in 2020. 2022, and again, I got a chance to get out there this year. So I've done it 5 times for sure.
That is
It's a
very
hell
cool. Well, 'cause
of
I'm remembering from when we had you on, and I believe we talked a bunch about it. So that's why I was thinking that it was in around then. But I have no idea. It
yeah.
could
I think it was
maybe it's
I
not.
think it was like 2019 ish the last time I was on, and it's not a trail race. I mean the last mile is off road, but the rest of it's asphalt. So it doesn't completely fit with the culture motif, but if it's a type of Fall State and Heart of the South, and now we got the Fools 420 in upstate New York. Those races are also kind of a lifestyle kind of event because you, when you're doing it, and Fred can attest to this, after you've been out there 3 or 4 days, you can't remember anything else in your life but being out on the course is what it feels like. So
It's you and the road.
for sure you and the road and figuring stuff out.
So I have I actually have, and I'm kind of going to go off. It's kind of off script here, but Art knows that's what I do. So, um, in asking, so you've been doing altars for 18 years, and you've mentioned that it's a lifestyle. And so that's like really like sticking with me. And so I'm wondering like how that kind of became a lifestyle for you, and whether it was the running that had it become, or was it once the running got to be a certain, like when it was like, a certain like the time or multi-day or yeah, I just want to kind of hear more about that.
That's an interesting question. I I'm like a lot of different people. I came to ultra running. I'd run some marathons before I got into ultra running, and I talked about coming to Fort Drum. I'd already run 8 or 9 marathons in the previous 5 or 6 years before that. And I mean, I'm I'm never going to try to blow smoke up anybody's skirt and say I'm a great runner or anything like that. I mean, I'd already been in the army for a long time, and by the time I got to Fort Drum, I'd been in the Army 15 years, and 10 or 12 years that I've been in the infantry. And every day in the infantry, you wake up and it's kind of like the gazelle the lion story. For whatever reason, you're out there doing PT and you're running, kind of a thing. And I'd never been a runner before I got in the Army. Like I'd been a ball sport guy the whole time, and my whole decadent youth before I got in the Army. But um, I had a couple of friends of mine punk me into, well, one guy literally punked me into doing my first marathon. But I'd done a bunch of marathons, and when I got to upstate New York, Fort Drum, I was looking around for a marathon to do, and I came across something called the Finger Lakes 50K, and 50K, 50 miler, and it was like in 6 weeks, and I signed up for it, and it was a trail ultra, and it, I mean, it was such a great time. I did 5 or 6 ultras that year, and I wrapped up with. I found myself at the Hellgate 100K, and I talked Dr. David Horton into letting me in because I didn't qualify for it at the time, and he was like, "Yeah, sure." I gave him this long soliloquy about why I should run in this and that, and it starts at midnight at Hellgate Creek in Fincastle, Virginia, and I'd never tried anything that hard before. I'd done a bunch of 50Ks and the Can Lake 50, and thought I was all that. And I'm at this race, but I'd never run all night before, even being in the Army and everything else. And I got to an aid station at 22 miles and missed the cutoff by like 7 minutes or something like that. And it was like, damn. And so that was, I mean, I hadn't failed at a race or doing anything in the Army before or anything like that, although, I'd failed at plenty of sports stuff before. So, that was in, if you're familiar with Hellgate, it takes place the second Saturday of December, and that was, like December 10th, and I just didn't make the cutoff, and I got yanked off the race course. It was humiliating.
Oh,
And no, but I mean that happens in ultra
but
running. You make the cut,
I
or you
know
don't
it
make the
does.
cut.
It happens to all of us, but
It happens to
it
all of us. So,
stings.
but I'm sitting
It
there. I'm on
stings
the.
when it happens.
I'm on the bus of shame, and friends of mine finished the course, and it's like, geez, Louise. So, but I mean, the bottom line was I just hadn't trained enough. I hadn't trained at night running at all. I just figured I'd spent so much time doing stuff in the Army, my decadent young career in the Army. You're up all night half the time, and this and that. But I got pulled off the course. So that was December 11th, and December 13th. It's like, what, my mileage for this year sucks. It's not a surprise I didn't finish a 100K trail race, and I ran every day the rest of the month just to see if I could do it, and I just kept running, and that I just kept that streak going, and um, I've still DNF plenty of races since then, but I always have a decent base mileage that I can fall back on. And that's how it's become a big part of my lifestyle. I just get out and I run every day, and I sign up for as many long races as I can do at this point. And, um, you know, in this past fall, I did a couple of races. I did, I did the Ghost Train 100 and finished that. But I saw Art at the Hamster Wheel 30-hour race. That's the last time I've seen them. I've tried Culture a couple times and failed at that. The Cut
Me
112.
too.
Yeah, I mean, so
Mhm.
the way I've worked it out is I get out and I do miles every day, and it basically has me prepared to do a lot of races. But at other points, I've got to do really specific training. But it's definitely, ultra running's became a lifestyle with me. That when I first failed the Hellgate 100K, that was December 11th, 2007, and I've been out getting miles in every day since 2013, 2007. So it's become a lifestyle just to stay in this sport, to the point where I want to be able to go to a race like a Vol State, or go to a hamster wheel, or God forbid a Virgil Crest 100, and try to reel in a finish line. But it's absolutely a lifestyle. I know it isn't for a lot of people, and I know I've got friends that'll tell you every streak ends or this all ends, but it's basically kept me healthy. I weigh less than I weighed then when I joined the Army in 1991, and it's because I incorporated this lifestyle. In a lot of ways, it was accidentally, but I'm still doing it, you know, because I get to meet people like you guys when I get out there and do it. I get to meet people that spell their name Fred, Phred, at times, you know, out on the course.
That would be me.
Yep, that's absolutely you. Are you doing well, that's a dumb question. You're going to be in Sussex. You're going to be at Sussex
Yes, yeah, I'll be
at
at
some point.
at the fair, but probably only for 24 hours.
Yeah,
You've been
I've
doing the
noticed.
6 day the last few years, right?
I've noticed that's. I noticed that's what you do out there. So I'll be looking for you around day 5 out there.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I wanted to ask you, now that there's a moment, uh, Jim Lampman reached out to me and said that they're doing a 30-hour in Dryden in like 2 weekends from this weekend.
Yeah, I signed
You,
up for that son of a gun
you
today.
you did. Okay. I was gonna say like that
So
seems like a Tim Hardy type thing. Last minute
you
winter.
know what? I did not create that, and I was really like, it's a winter ultra, but Mr. Lampman created it and put it together, and it's a lot like Beast of Burden, and it's a big race for Jim because it's going to be Jim's 100th 100.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Oh,
I'm not going to say
wow.
Jim created it, but he sent it over to me, and I live like 45 minutes north of Dryden, and I just boloed a winter 100 2 weeks ago, and it's like I don't know. Now I work all over the state of New York, so I found a way to go to a couple of the sites that I could go visit not 36 hours ago, and I'm out in the course, and it's like, yeah, this is a flat, snowy friggin' trail, but a couple other of my friends signed up, so I signed up for that thing tonight of all things.
There you
So
go.
yeah.
So now you're no stranger to winter hundreds. I mean, or winter ultras, right? You did Arrowhead, is that right?
It's been a while since I've been in the Arrowhead course, but yeah, I graduated from that in 2012. I attempted it in 2010, like 4 weeks after I redeployed from Afghanistan. I made it to like mile 101, and I was just done. Although looking back on it now, I was like, you Sally, you should have finished that. But I did I did
So
do
funny.
I did get to the Arrowhead finish line in 2012, and most things pale in comparison to that for
And
that
yeah,
race.
and for anybody who doesn't know, that's in Minnesota in the middle of the winter, and it's typical for temperatures to be well below zero. So
It is. It starts in International Falls, right on the Canadian border. International Falls, the quote unquote ice box of the ice box in North America. And you get on the Arrowhead snowmobile trail and you follow it all the way to Tower, Minnesota, which they call it the Arrowhead because it cuts across the northeast corner of Minnesota. So the Arrowhead Trail cutting that piece off that goes out into Lake Superior. It looks like an arrowhead, and it's 135 miles. And I'm not going to lie to you. The 3 nights I've been on the course, 36 below zero ambient air temperature. It's it gets really cold out there,
Wow.
scary cold. Like you know,
Oh,
between doing Vol State and things like Badwater, and then you do things like Arrowhead and even the Beast of Burden in Western New York, which is the end of January. It's not International Falls, but people are always like, oh, because Badwater is an awesome event, and they have this thing, hardest, toughest road race, and toughest race in the world, and it's like, you know, really hot summer races like Vol State, they're really hard. You're out on the road, you're baking. But when you stop moving, you go into a convenience store, and if you're smart, you walk into the beer cave and all your pores are open and you start cooling off immediately. I mean, those races, really exceedingly hot races, and I haven't done the Keys 100. Maybe when I check my Florida block, it'll be the Keys 100. The really hot races are really hard because you're risking
mm,
being a heat casualty and you're sweating the whole time and everything else. But when you're on the Arrowhead 135 course, or you're on the Beast of Burden course, even in Western New York, the end of January, or when you're on a winter ultra, especially a really cold winter ultra, when you stop moving, it feels like you're starting to die. I mean, there are times I stopped on the Arrowhead course, it's like, I got to get moving before I freeze into a block of ice out here. Seriously.
Well, you know why you feel that way, Tim, is because you probably kind of are. If you're
Yeah.
not moving, you are starting to die. So it's move or die.
You know, the second night I was on the Arrowhead course in 2012, I'd already I made it through. They have three cutoffs. You have a cutoff at the county store at mile 37. There's a county store. You got to be in there before 9 o'clock at night. I'd made it in there at 6 o'clock. And then you got to cross Elephant Lake and get to mile 73. They have a cabin. It's a resort area. They they still do it. I was going to go out this year, but we had issues in my family, so I didn't go out there, which I still have dreams about being on that course. But so they have a check-in on the west side of Elephant Lake on mile 73, and I made that. And they have a check-in at mile 114, and you got to be there. I forget what time you got to be there, but the race is only 60 hours long, so you got to be there by I think 40 hours or something like that. But so I was on my second night on the course in 2012, and I'm an average ultra runner. I'm a back of the packer. I hadn't seen anybody all day on the second half of the course. You know, I'm moving from mile 75 out to, trying to get the course done, trying to get 135 miles done in 60 hours. And I was on my second night on the course, and I'm moving down the course, and I've got a headlamp on. I'd already seen a huge lynx cross the trail right in front of me, a huge snow lynx. And the only reason I saw him is I was looking up and I'd seen all his tracks in the snow, like along the side of the trail. I'm like, I really hope that's not a mountain lion's tracks, but it's deep winter in northern Minnesota. But there were cat tracks, and this thing crossed the track right in front of me, and I'm pulling my sled with my 38 pounds of stuff in there, and I got my headlamp on, and that thing, he wanted me to see him because he crossed like 12 feet in front of me, and he just turned and looked at me. It was this enormous snow lynx, and his eyes were these big green eyes. It was like, wow, that is really cool. I'm really glad I was looking up and saw that. But I'm moving further down the trail, and you're crossing Voyager National Forest the whole time. And seriously, there were wolf kits howling on one side of the trail, and then their parent wolf started howling on the other side of the trail. This is all in the second night of the course. It's like, wow, I hope one of these little kits wander out in the trail. I'll throw them my sled. And then the adult wolf started howling on the left side of the trail. It was like, wow, they're wolves because they tell you there's wolves all over Voyager National Forest. And that thing couldn't have been 100 feet off the trail. I couldn't see it, but I was like, this is really something. But then at 2 in the morning, I was like, am I hallucinating this? Am I dead? This is how cold it gets on the Arrowhead Trail. And they just had this race 2 weeks ago. This is how, but it was a warm year. It never got below 10 below zero. But this is how cold it gets. I'm moving down the trail. It's like 2 in the morning. And suddenly it was like a scene out of, Uh, it was a scene like out of Avatar, but this is in 2012. And I've got my headlamp on. I'm moving through the dark, and all you can hear is my sled moving behind me. I haven't seen anybody for like 12 hours. I'm moving down the trail, and all of a sudden, I'm just seeing lights floating in the air, like little microscopic sized lights just floating in the air all around me. And what happens is it gets so cold on the Arrowhead Trail, all the moisture in the air, all the moisture follicles, they all freeze. They all freeze. And I forget what the
Wow.
technical term is for it, but they all freeze, and all those little ice, all the moisture in the air turns into little ice pellets, and they're just floating around in the air. But I didn't know that at the time. I'm like, did I freeze to death? Am I like dead right now? Am I hallucinating this? And I looked it up, and I wish I knew what the technical term for it is, because there's a scientific term, but it was so cold, all the moisture in the air, all the little ice follicles had frozen up, and they were just floating there, and my headlamp was lighting them all up. It was like, what just happened? Am I dead? Have I frozen to death? But that's what's so cool about this sport. You see stuff like that you would never ever see before. That was a
So
long
I'm
story.
curious, so as you're talking, and there's definitely this theme of, you know, long races, obviously, but like really interesting, challenging terrain, being out there on your own, kind of, in traveling in potentially dangerous areas. And for me, it kept bringing me back to your you having a military background. And so I'm wondering, do is do you feel like your choice of ultra running and the kind of races that you do you feel like that was inspired at all, or does that remind you at all of your time in the military, or when you're in a race and it's getting hard, it's in the middle of the night, you're by yourself and you're like, an animal might eat me. Is it something where you look back on uh, other experiences, and maybe not experiences from being in the military, but maybe other experiences that that you pull from?
That's
Sorry,
a
that was a lot of questions.
no, it's really all one question. It's a good question. And
Thank you very much.
um yeah, I've never technically worried about an animal eating me on a course, by the way, but that was a very loud timber wolf that was telling those kits to shut up from just, I mean, whatever it was moving on this side of the trail. The kits were on the right side of the trail, and it was really close. But I've never technically worried about an animal eating me or anything on the course. But I mean, I like to do challenging things. I've always, and I think the ultra running lifestyle more fell into that as opposed to I'm out here, I'm trying to be Dave Goggins looking for stuff that, and I'm not saying Dave Goggins looked for stuff that is really hard or anything like that, but that's just for example. I've met him.
Mm.
He's an unbelievable ultra runner and human being, by the way. But no, it just all kind of flowed together. If my book ever gets published, I have a chapter. It's like it was all inevitable, and it's. I think I fell into this doing it because all the stuff I did in my background and in um, I started trying to I went out for high school football because friends of mine were going out for high school football that had played football their whole life, and I had never played any football. And I want to see if I could do it. It's like that looks really challenging. I want to see if I could do it. And when I eventually joined the Army, I enlisted at the age of 30, and I wanted to enlist and go to Ranger Regiment because the year before I enlisted, we had something called an operation called Just Cause, where Ranger Regiment had jumped into Panama, and I was some civilian with no direction in my life, framing and building houses and stuff like that. And I read all about that, and it's like, man, that's really intense. I wonder if I could do that. And I went and I enlisted in the Army. I talked my family into enlisting in the Army, and I didn't even have that in my contract, because the recruiter at MEPS was like, "Oh yeah, you can, when you go to advanced intermediate training, you can talk them into letting you, try to go to Ranger Regiment." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try that," and that's exactly actually what happened. But I've just always tried to challenge myself by seeing that looks really intense. I want to see if I could do that, and I've been doing that in ultra running for a long time, and I've been able to finish some really hard races, and I've had some other failures that were um, pretty big failures from my perspective. But that's the beauty of ultra running. Every time you step on a 50K course or a 100-mile course or the Vol State 314-mile course or the Fools 420-mile course, you get to measure yourself against that course, and you get to see what you're really capable of on that day or that week. And this is a long-winded answer to your question, Becky, but
No, I like it.
I kind of gravitate towards stuff that's longer because I've spent times where, in all of 2009, I was downrange in Afghanistan for a 12-month combat tour in Afghanistan. So you kind of measure time differently after you've done something like that. I was a senior communications signal officer in an entire infantry brigade, and I was in Afghanistan for 14 months, and that may have been this is going to sound really weird, but that may have been my best working experience in my whole life because everything was focused on one thing, making sure everybody in this entire 6,000 person brigade can talk every time they pick up a hand phone. And so, you get into ultra running and there's all these different unique events you can measure yourself against all the time. And it's great. I love doing it. I went down to a race in I thought I was going to check my block for Delaware, and I was doing a 100-mile race 2 weeks ago, and I came up short, and I didn't make it to the finish line. It's like, damn, I was 100% sure I was going to finish that, but it was a really icy trail race, and I was moving like pond water, and I didn't finish. So you get to measure yourself every time you step on a course, and the older you get, the courses can get a lot shorter and become a lot more challenging just because you're older and you're not training as hard as you used to be, kind of a thing, or you're not capable of all the things you used to be. So
I love that. So it's interesting because you've sort of answered another question that I had, which was what was your, like, when you start to kind of dig down and say, what is my, not my ultimate, but if I had to give points to all the different reasons why I do this, like what kind of gets the most points. And it sounds like what I was going to ask is it the lifestyle part? Is it the communication with other people part? Is it the, so on and so forth? But it sounds to me, and I could be wrong, but that it's that ability to challenge yourself, to give you this opportunity to be like, I'm going to see what I've got today. Is
that that
that
that's
right?
ultimately the bottom line. That is ultimately the bottom line. It really is. I mean, there's nothing like the ultra community out there. There isn't.
Mm.
I mean, even I mean, it translates so well. I spent 20 years in a day in the military, and I got to work with all sorts of incredible people, and I got to spend time in the special operations community and all that stuff. And there's some stuff you do every day that's really hard out in communities like that. But the beauty of ultra running is you get to measure yourself against a course every time you toe the starting line. And it's a scary thing because it's like when I went to the Angela Ivory 2 weeks ago, I'm like, I'm going to knock this thing out of the park. It's Delaware. How hard can this be? It's winter, and it was just really icy. And I just got way behind and I'm fat and out of shape from, Thanksgiving and Christmas after, whatever. And it was just like, man, I'm only at 70 miles and the sun came up and I'm still trying to gut it out. And it's like, I'm just not going to make the finish line. So ultra running sets a really hard metric, and you get to measure yourself and see what you're capable of every time you go out there. And then you get to spend time on the course while you're doing that with people like you and Fred and Art and the whole ultra running community
Yeah.
at the same time. So it's a great.
So
I sound really corny, but I
no, I
100%
love
believe
this.
all that for sure.
Do you feel like, so you've been doing this for 18 years. Do you feel like in those years with that experience and with age, has that has that changed? Like, one of the things that you just said that stuck in my mind was, you get to compete against the course. And I like that. And part of that is, for many people, it's I'm competing against other people. So
Sure,
I'm wondering,
that's part of it too.
has that always been competing against the course? And has it ever been competing against, like, has that changed
Um,
over time? Like,
this is going to sound really convoluted, but I mean, I'm always the weakest link in my finish. But if I'm on the course with other people, I'm 100% trying to beat everybody on the course. I just, I'm never going to be one of those people although my first year at 3 days at the fair, I actually had a podium finish. I came in third, 72 hours.
yay.
But and so, you know, I'm I'm not a competitive ultra runner from that perspective, but in a long race like 100 miles or longer, I am trying to run down everybody in front of me, 100%, 100%. And and where I grew up in the infantry, when you're out there training at Fort Lewis, Washington, out there doing PT from 6:30 to or 5:30 to 6:30 every morning. I mean, I was in an organization. If there was someone, you'd have all these design physical training programs. We're going to do this course for this amount of time and this and that. We're going to run in the 7-mile pace for 35 minutes and 5 miles or this and that. But if there was someone on the course in front of us, like, we're going to pass their ass right now, run them down and pass them. So, I mean, I try to be competitive, and if people are on the course in front of me in a 100-miler, I'm always trying to close out a race as best as I can do it. And the real way I do that is, like, if I see a Fred Murolo out on the course ahead of me, not that I ever do see Fred specifically, but if I see someone like Fred out in the course in front of me, I'm trying to run their ass down to use that to get me to the
It's
finish
hunting you
line.
down, Fred.
100%. 100%.
I would do the same.
Yeah. It's like, there's this saying in ultra running is take what the course gives you. One of the things ultra running gives you, there's people out in the course in front of you. Use them to motivate yourself to pick up your pace every time.
Yes.
It works.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny that you
Even
say
when
that,
you're an average
because
mid-pack, back of the pack runner, everyone's always talking about, oh, there's not a lot of racing that goes on back there. I'm like, excuse my language, of
there
bullshit.
is, yeah.
Everybody back there is like, I am going to run that. I've been following that guy for 6 hours. I'm going to pass him or her now. Seriously, happens.
Yeah.
Happens all the
I
time.
think I think that you hit on something so important in that. I think one of the things that, and maybe it's also with age or maybe it's with experience, but that having those people that are competing around you and using them as strength to pull you along, like, and getting, like, having that, and then just using it to propel you forward. Whereas I think, at least for me, when I was younger, it was like there's people around me, I'm intimidated and I'm scared and I don't want them to be around me and I want to pass them and whatever. But being able to, be competitive and want to, do as best as you can and beat, pass as many people as you can. But those people that are around you, for however long they're around you, if it's the whole race or a minute or 2 minutes or whatever, like using them to your advantage. I just, yeah, I think that's like a huge thing.
I 100% of this, and been doing this long enough where, especially in the Northeast, it's like there's people I know that go to every event, and it's like, damn, if I didn't finish before so and so this time, or Fred got there before me this time. But it's like, for sure, absolutely. I mean, it, it it's one of those sports where everybody wants to see everybody do well, and there's not a lot of sports like that. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't say everybody in the NBA wants to see all their competition do well. And, not everybody in the NFL wants to see the Chiefs win this weekend. They don't want to all see a three-peat of that kind of excellence. But the ultra running community is different. Everybody likes seeing everybody else succeed, but it's like, yeah, I'm going to spend 6 days at the fair. I won't really want to bury that dude this time. It's funny like that. But, and the other thing is, a lot of people, I mean, I didn't run my first ultra. I was 46 before I ran my first ultra. A lot of people don't come to the sport till they're way into midlife, and it's kind of like they wake up and they look around. They've been part of corporate America or part of, a profession for a long time. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not done doing physical stuff yet. What am I capable of? And you can do
Yeah.
this sport forever. I was at just being at Angela Ivory. I saw one of my favorite human beings on the planet, and you may or may not recognize him. His name's Gene Bruckert. He, when I first was the race director for Green Lakes Endurance Races in 2013, he ran it in 2014, and he was the oldest finisher ever to finish the 50K in 2014 because he was 79 at that point. But he was at the Angela Ivory. I did the 100-miler, but he was in the 50K, and he did that 2 weekends ago. The guy's 89 years old.
He's the one that goes to Notchview, right?
He's at
Is
Notchview.
that the
Yeah,
same June?
I hadn't
Yes.
seen
I
Gene
love
since Notchview
him.
2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, he was at Angela
Love
Ivory two
him.
weeks ago out there doing the 50K in a win. I mean, it's a winter race. It's the end of, it's the end of January. It's Delaware, so it's not International Falls, but I mean, it's a 5K loop on a winter trail, and there's Gene, 89 years old. He's out there, and it's like
Yes.
you're
Yeah.
sitting there, I'm like, I'm so awesome. Then you see Gene, it's like, man, I want to be Gene when I grow up. There's so many people
Yes.
like that in this sport, for sure.
Oh, that's so funny because when you're like, I don't know if you know, I'm like, I'm not gonna know who the person is because I'm not very I never seem to know who anyone is when I
Gene
don't know.
Drucker.
But when you said that, I was like, wait, I know Gene. And then when you
Yep,
started to say about the age, I was like, oh, could it be? Could it be
yep.
him? Because I just love him to pieces. So I mean, I've done Notch for You every year for the last, I don't know, 8, 9 years, and
I'll
he
see you
he does
there.
it every year too. I
I'll
know
be
I
looking
didn't
for you
realize
there.
that you were. So here's something, a little
This will be my
nugget
third
is
time there.
that you, me, and Art, and unfortunately not Fred because he's got something else. We're all in the 48 hour together.
There we go. Yep.
Woohoo! So, and uh this is my this will be my first 48 hour. I've never done one before. Art,
Hmm.
you can shake your head yes or no. Your first 48?
Yeah, that'll be my first 48.
Oh, we're like 48 virgins. Oh. So
Timed
very,
races are the bomb for sure,
yeah.
for sure. And
So now
of
I'm
course,
like,
that one's got
gosh,
Mike
I wonder
Melton
if we
doing it.
saw each
Yeah.
other.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah. I mean, I've been
We
there
probably
two
did
of the
and
last
just
five
didn't,
years, so you and I were on the course out there for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I'll be looking
yes.
for you this time though.
Yeah, I'm the one that's always, well, I shouldn't say that I'm always, whatever. I'm always like the saying hi, 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 good job, job.
I'm I'm one of the few people that never talks at these things. I just keep. Well, I won't say that, but I'm not a big talker. I just get out there and try to keep moving for sure.
Oh, that's great. So,
That
in
first hill, ooh, take the right turn, and then it's almost all downhill from there.
isn't it
Can't
funny
wait.
how, I mean, so
Yeah,
many races are like this, but the first, first 10 times you do it, it's just easy peasy. And then after a while, you're like, this hill is getting longer and longer. Um, and it's not, of course, but you just, it's just, the things that you notice when you're on lap 50,
sure.
you know?
It's the downward spiral, with the ultra taking its toll, and whether or not you train properly and everything else. But I mean, the sport, it's a tough sport. It really brings out all your strengths and weaknesses as a human being, including your training or your lack of training, more than anything else, for
I
sure.
think
So
that's
do
one of the
you,
great things about it is that
100%.
I can remember my first 100, I dropped at like 68 miles and I was like, I'm just too soft. I gotta just toughen up.
Yeah.
Like yeah, I have to figure out how to keep going. Like giving
Yep.
up is it's not the way to go. Like if I ever want to be a 100-mile runner, I just got to be tougher. And I think that was great. That was a great life lesson.
Seriously. Seriously. I mean, one of the benefits you get from this sport is, uh, I mean, you can out survive most of the other human beings in our country. I mean, think about it. If they lined everybody up like, in Stephen King's The Long Runners and said, you got to maintain a 4 mile per hour pace until nobody else is left, you have a better chance than the average person out there, certainly. I mean, that sounds ludicrous, but it's like when you spend time doing the sport, I mean, even doing marathons at 50Ks, you're doing stuff. It's like,
hmm,
it's like, in my green mine, it's not mine. I mean, I'm the race director for Green Lakes Endurance Races, and we've had a 50K and a 100K, and we've added a 25K and a 12 hour this year. And I always have, it used to be there be people coming up. I'm only doing the 50K, and that's the first thing I say in the race brief. Nobody can just say I'm just doing the 50K, because
right,
you may just be doing a 50K, but there's 300 million Americans that are not running a 50K trail race today.
right,
I mean, it's ultra, even 50Ks. It's a hard thing. Most people will never ever attempt it. So
yeah.
it's an awesome sport like that, for sure. And it's like Fred was just saying, it's like, wow, I really failed at that. I've just got to learn how to be a tougher human being. And that happens.
So you have, because I, was looking at your Ultra sign up. You're already signed up at least from Ultra sign up. I'm sure there's other races that don't pop up on Ultra sign up, but I see that you're signed up for nine races. So in just varying distances and
Yeah.
and places. So
It's
I
funny how
I
the
love
race
the next
calendar,
one.
it's funny
Oh
how the race
shucks.
calendar swells from like, it's like sometime between the 1st of December and the middle of January, the race calendar goes from like nothing to wow,
Yeah.
there's a lot of races in there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a pretty good schedule, and there's stuff I'm going to add to it. I it's like we were talking about. You know, Fred knows him. I know him. Jim Lampman. He's coming up on his 100th 100, and I'm so far from that. But there are people like you should try to do that. But I mean, last year was not my best year running ultras, but I finished 6 races that were at least 100 miles long. And when I was looking back, it's like that's the first time I've done more than 5 races that were 100 miles long. It's like, wow, what's the matter with me? It felt like it was a weak year, but this year I'm
Yeah.
trying to do more. I'm trying to get more 100-mile finishes to see how many I can get. So my race schedule got pretty big. I mean, I've got it might not even be on ultra sign up. I've got Rabid Raccoon in the middle of March, and
Ooh.
yeah, I don't think that's on ultra sign up. But
No.
there's a chance I might not do that because a friend of mine is on the short list to get into Barkley, and they asked me to crew them if they went to it. So I might not do Rabid Raccoon because I might be at Frozen Head State Park crewing a really good friend of mine. So there's
Oh, that's so great.
there are some things that are a bigger calling than running your own
Yeah.
race, and that'll be one of them because this guy's 100% committed to finishing that race. So I tried the Angel Ivory, but I came up short. But I just signed up for the Oz Shugs 30-hour coming up in February.
And now
Is
is
it?
this the first time that you do? Yes, on the 22nd in
Yeah,
Dryden, New York.
this race has never happened before. It just got created. So I'm going to try to get 100 miles in that, but it's a 30-hour race. I've got Rabbit Raccoon in March. I signed up for the C&O Canal again, C&O Canal 100 in April. I love that race if you've never done it. It's the C&O
No, I've
Canal
never.
it's in
It's
southern
flat.
Maryland on the C&O Canal. It's mostly flat because it's on the C&O Canal rail trail. It's a rail trail on the C&O Canal, and it's three
Hmm.
33-mile loops. But at the end of every loop, you come back up a single track trail into the camp race ground, and there's some hill there, but the rest of it's really flat. I mean, it's nothing like the Cut 112 or anything like that. It's a really flat race. It's got a great pace to it. This will be the third or fourth year I've gone out and done that. So that's in April. In May, I'm in 6 days at the fair. And I'm excited about that.
Wow, so
Um,
there's two races. So now we're up to 11 races because those both two of those races that you just mentioned were on Ultra sign up. So that's
well,
I'm keeping some tallies here. Go
got
on.
I've got a lot of races. I better not tell everybody about these. But yeah, so 6 days at the fair. That's in May, and that's not an ultra sign up. But I just I love the McNulty clan. I love that race, and I was really looking at trying to do 3 separate 100-mile races there, but I love competing in the 6 day or the 3 day. And the last 3 times I've done it, I've been in the top 5 or 6. So it's like,
Yeah, good for you.
yeah, it's like
It's
so
yeah,
this
you
year I'm
want
going to
to.
do the so this year I'm going back to the 6 day and I'm going to do every mile I can do out on the McNulty mile, and it just turns into a lot of loops that it's so basic these these long time races. It's like you're either grinding the course down or the course is grinding you down, and it's just pure ultra running. And when I finally got out to that race, I was like, I should have been at time races like this a long time ago because it's the purest form of ultra running. It's just you in a 1 mile course and everybody's equal. And how many miles can you do? There's
Yeah.
beauty in that. I mean, it's pure, it's simple, and it's really hard at the same time. I
Yeah.
mean,
And that course couldn't have more than, I don't know, 30 feet of vert per mile, but it
I mean,
seems
you
like
you
there are hills
you come around the
after the
mat,
days
and
go
you can
by,
see
right?
your head's taller than the top of the hill in front of you.
Yeah.
It's that
But
that little course that comes past the aid station, and
yeah, like you're going past
it's
the aid
like
station, you're like, I
it's
should walk
so
this. This
flat.
is an
It's
uphill.
so
And then you
flat.
go
It's
through the gate
beautiful.
on the other part, you're
Yep.
like, I should walk this. This is also an
Yep.
uphill.
Yep.
But it's kind of ridiculous, really, when you
Yep.
look
It's
at
so
it.
flat, but it's like it's the endless McNulty mile. It's like it's Sisyphus without the rock. It's like
Yep.
you just get out there for 3 days or 6 days. It's like this is insane. But I'll see you in 144 hours and let's see what you can do. It's really something. It's really something.
And what about the last annual Heart of the South road race? Have you
Yeah, the
done that
last annual
before?
Heart of
Is
the
that
South. Yeah, I'm excited about that race. That race is the brain toast. We were already talking about the last annual Vol State earlier. The last annual Heart of the South was created by a guy named Gary Cantrell. Everybody knows him as Lazarus Lake, and he created that race. Um, it's kind of like the evil Becky twin to last annual Vol State because so many people jump into Vol State. It fills the last annual Vol State. They open registration 1 August, and the race fills in like 7 hours. Not even 7 hours, like 7 minutes. So many people want to run it. The last annual Heart of the South is the evil twin of that race, where that happens in June. Vol State, you cross all of Tennessee in July. The last annual Heart of the South is called the last annual Heart of the South. That happens 10 days before Vol State. It finishes 10 days before Vol State. And it's the same principle, except the race starts on the second or third Thursday in June. On Wednesday, you're going to get on a bus and you're going to drive somewhere, and the bus is going to stop. And then they tell you what the course is. They send you the course Wednesday night, and they're like, here's the course. You've got 10 days to finish
no?
it. Yes, yes, it's beautiful. It's
So
beautiful.
every
Yeah.
year it's different?
It's been
Every
different
year the
every
course is
year.
different.
Yeah.
Every year the
And
course is different.
it's a little bit like Vol State in the sense that it's across some part of the South, but it's a different course every year. And there's no like Angel aid stations or anything
There's
because
nothing.
nobody knows you're out there.
Right. The Laz created it because everyone's saying, "Oh, Vol State's getting too easy. There's too many road angels out there supporting the course." So he created this race, and I
This
did
is
it in
so awesome.
2020. The first year he stood it up, I did it in it was 340 miles that year. Then the second year I didn't do it that year. I couldn't get there. It was 320 something miles. Then I did it the year after. It was 300 and it was that course in 2022 is 327. This year the course is 343 miles, but Laz and his second in command, Carl Laniak, have added something else to it. So the main course is 343 miles, but if you want, you can get off the bus at 396 miles and start 4 hours before the people at 346 miles. And damned if I'm not going to do that. I mean, it's like everybody's trying to figure out. It's like one of the most unknown things that people are trying to figure out in the world of sports. Is like, where is Hots going to start this year? And we never get it. Nobody ever gets it right. But I can't wait for that race.
Wow.
I'm getting off the bus at 396 miles, and I got 10 days to finish that. So that's in June. Yes, it's half of June is one of the milestones.
Wow.
Yeah, last annual Heart of
I
the South, completely unknown. I mean, the Army won't even do stuff like that because there's too many unmeasured factors and they can't control the training. But Laz like, yeah, we're going to put you out on the road, and if you survive and you need us, we'll pick you up on the side of the road if you need it, if we can find you. It's crazy.
so
It's insane.
is there like is it even possible for people to say, I don't, to have like a crew, so to speak,
No,
that they find
It's
the route
completely
and
uncrewed. They, in fact, they don't even let you crew at Ball State anymore. But in fact, they've gone. uh, Crews are not allowed at last annual Heart of the South, and they've actually gone to the point where they've told people in the race, and they'll tell people in the pre-race brief because Wednesday night part of your entry fee is your hotel before the night of the race. That's paid for, and you all get together at like a Chinese restaurant, buffet or Golden Corral. And one of the things I'll tell you at Heart of the South is we don't want you publishing where the race is unless you're on Facebook. We don't want you saying, well, tonight I've got to be in Selma, Alabama by 12 o'clock to make the cutoff. They don't want you posting that because they don't want people coming and supporting anybody on the course. There's no support. You can't tell your family, here's the course, come out and support me on the course. That gets you disqualified. And they don't even want you posting where the course is going to be 12 hours from now because they don't want road angels out in the course. It's you in the course and how far can you go and how fast can you cover the course and can you make the cutoff.
Laz's Fight Club.
That's you know what, at the Tuesday night social, that's a great description, Art. It's Laz's Fight Club for sure 100%.
So does he give you like, do you get a map or do you get like a turn by turn direction or
like at about it'll be about 8:30 p.m. Central Time Wednesday night before the race. I think the race starts Thursday 12th of June, and like at 11:30 on Wednesday night you'll get an email and it'll be like, here's the course map. And that's it. You got to download it as a GPX file and put it on your phone and figure out how to follow it. That's it. That's what you get.
Oh my god.
And the race starts it'll start at 7 and you check in every 12 hours at 7:30. Like you'll message either Carl or Bad Mike Dobies or Laz every 12 hours on the course. They have a spreadsheet where you check in and say, okay, this is, Tim Hardy. I am in Selma, Alabama at this point, kind of a thing. That's it. And that's how they track you. And they have a wagon that pulls people off the course when they drop. That's how it works. They have a Jan Redmond Walker. She drives, we call it the meat wagon. She drives a meat wagon for Vol State and for Hots. It's a nice little SUV. When you tap out, they'll be like, yeah, go to the Pine Creek Hotel. We'll pick you up within the next 12 hours, kind of a thing, and drive you back to your vehicle. Seriously.
So there aren't any cutoff points, right? Like it's get there in 10 days.
No. There's serious cutoffs. At either Vol State or Heart of the South, you've got to cover at least 50 kilometers every 24 hours.
Okay.
So you've got to cover 31 mile, from when the race starts at 7:30 by Friday, you have to be at mile 31 or they come and pull you off the course. And then on Saturday, you've got to be at 62 miles or they come and pull your withered ass off the course. So you've got to cover at least 50 kilometers a day. And that's not dramatic. It's not terrible. It isn't, except,
but what if you're
supporting yourself, you're finding water, you're lost on the course. There's a lot of things that can go wrong.
So what if on the first 2 days you're just doing awesome and you get in like
sure
50 miles each day. And so on the third day, you only can get in 5 or 10, but you're still over that 50K, 50K, 50K.
Exactly. That was my race in 2018. In 2018, I got to 100 kilometers in the first day, but I destroyed my feet because I hadn't taken care of them. And but it's specific points on the course. It's not okay. You were at mile 70. You were at mile 62 at the end of the first day, so you're going to be at mile 92 at the end of the second day. No, you've got to cover 50 kilometers on the course every day. So you can get out ahead of the clock. You can get out of, at Vol State, they call the cutoff Oprah. At Hots, they just call it the Grim Reaper. As long as you're ahead of the Grim Reaper, you can have an off day and only cover 24 miles, but you're still ahead of the Grim Reaper, so they don't pull you off the course. Because you covered, say you covered 100 kilometers in the first 24 hours as opposed to 50 kilometers. So, when you're on the fifth day and you've only covered 22 kilometers, you're still way out ahead of the cutoff and they don't pull you off the course.
Got it.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little about I saw it on your post, um, how you have three criteria, three critical factors in determining your
Oh,
races.
which races I was going to do this year? That was
Yes.
so. I'm trying to do as many races as I could this year. So I just there were three things I wanted to do to weight races to make it easier for me to get to them, and there were three different things, and in no particular order. Least amount of travel. Like I love
Mm,
doing HOTS and I love doing Ball State, but for me to drive to Kimball, Tennessee, it's 14 hours one way. So I was looking for races that were closer,
mm,
races. This sounds really mercenary, but some races are a lot more expensive than others. And if I want to do as many races, there is such a thing as a race budget in my household that I
yes.
always blow through. But I'm trying to make that work as best I can. So I'm looking for the most. I was looking for the most affordable races, and the third thing, which is the most quasi, is feasible. You know, okay. I have a lot. I mean, I just finished like my 102nd combined ultra and marathon distance race, but there's a whole lot of DNFs in my background. And I've had people tell me, you spend way too much time doing big vertical trail races. You suck at them. And I do suck at them, but I love them. I'm drawn to them like a moth to the bug zapper. So,
Mm,
it's like the Virgil Crest 100 is 40 minutes from my house and it's not inexpensive, but I love the race director. I love the course. But there's other races that weekend that may be further away that I have a better chance of finishing because they're flat. So I have to weight
mm.
that too. It's like, so I'm trying to do as many races as I can this year. I mean, I'm not trying to be Walter Handloser or Ed Eddinghauser or Michael Ortiz and try to get in 50 races in a year. But it's like, if I'm trying to get in as many as I can, the more affordable, the better, the more feasible. Like I'm much better on a flat course than I am on a not flat course. So, I mean, that's humbling, but it's practical. Do I have a better chance of completing like for instance, Pine Creek, which is a race I love, or the Virgil Crest 100? They're both, Virgil Crest 100 is 36 hours, 23,000 feet of vertical. Pine Creek 30 hours, no vertical. Maybe, yeah, I'd love to finish fall Virgil Crest, but should I do Pine Creek? And what's the travel time? How much time am I going to spend traveling, spending time on the road, kind of a thing. So, I mean, I just posted that. I mean, Facebook, I don't spend a lot of time on there. It's my fitness journal, and I do that because ultimately I put every mile I've done on a daily and annual basis in an Excel tracker, but they were in like 70,000 different mediums. So I just started posting it to Facebook, and that's one of the things I
I love
posted.
it.
I mean, I'm not sure how Fred, for example, chooses his races, but at one point he had hit a streak where he had like 40 something 100s completed in a row. And I've never come close to that. It's like I had six or
You
seven, and then
legend,
I just,
Fred.
yeah, I had 6 or 7, and then I just DNF'd at Angel Ivory. So it's like, well, that was a winter race, and the chances were, it was icy, and I was moving a lot slower. So it was just the way I was weighting stuff, that kind of thing. The way, so it was like most feasible for me to finish, least amount of travel time, and you know most affordable. And shoot, my ultra sign up that there were still 100 things to pick from in there. So there's a lot of stuff in
Yeah.
there. You know.
So, Fred, now I'm going to put you on the hot seat. What are your criteria, or do you have some, and has that changed over the years?
Oh, it's completely changed over the years. Yeah. When I was first running ultras, I wanted to run 100 in California, so I did. That seemed really important to me. I did the Headlands 100 back in 2008. Uh,
Nice course.
yeah, that was really cool. But as the years go by, I've become cheaper and closer to home generally. The viaduct in Pennsylvania, I ran 5 times because the entry fee is 0. And it's really low key. It's like people bring their
Yeah,
own food to share and stuff, and the RDs are
I love
really
those
nice. I
race.
highly recommend it. And the actual viaduct that is right there at like next to the starting line is awesome. It's
It's
this
cool.
stone viaduct that was made in the 1840s. That's like 1,000 feet long and like 150 feet high. The arches, it's really cool.
It looks like it's
Yeah.
straight out of Roman times.
Yeah,
It
it was like a
does.
Roman viaduct. That's a cool race. I recommend it, Tim, if you're if you know zero entry fee, very low key,
Yep.
and
I did the 50 like in 2010, but I haven't done it in the longest time for it because it's like the same time as Vol State, but it's like I'm looking at doing it this year for
yeah.
sure.
The
For
other thing
sure.
about it
The
is
course is good too.
yeah, the course is cool, but if you do the 100, it's like you were saying about Arrowhead. You can like go out because there's so few people on the course for the
Yep.
100. Go out and it gets dark and you're in the woods and
Yep.
you're just on this course and you don't see anybody for the rest of the night. Maybe,
Right.
maybe 6 hours later, you'll see a light pass you and that's
Yep.
it, and
Yep.
which is kind of cool.
But are they footlights?
No footlights, no.
They might not be footlights. Um,
But yeah, that's one I like. But yeah, this is how my criteria have changed. I've gotten cheaper, and I like races that are associated with people that I like. Like Mike Melton is the
There you go.
RD of Ancient Oaks, so I've done that 8 times. So because I like him, he's a friend. So I go
He's the
down there,
RD at Notchview. Well, he's not the RD. He's the timing crew at Notchview.
right? And
oh my
he
God,
times
I
it
love him.
times that warm on him too.
kind of runs the race as Mike
Yeah,
Melton does. He's like, I mean, he
That's what
does the
he's known
race
to
pre.
do,
He's like,
right? Kind of
yeah,
takes
boom.
over running the race.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Great
feel
guy.
like I spend half of my time at Notchview, like t talking with him. Like he's just he's funny.
Yep.
I like him a lot. Uh, so yeah. Art, if you have a speaking voice, has your criteria changed at all? Especially now, I mean, like you've had a big life change, you're retired.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo.
I'd say right now I kind of I jump into races based on peer pressure. It's like if you guys say that you want to do a race, I'm like, oh, okay. I my planning's been pretty bad with my running in general. So I used to have a bunch of just things that I wanted to do, like more
Mm,
routes than races. And it does for me, it doesn't have to be a race to be a run. I'd rather,
mm,
for me, it's important just to go to see the places, whether it's someplace in the whites or whether it's that's how the Cut 112 started out, was just going out and doing it just because it was there. Um, but now as far as races, I found that it has definitely changed. Like I've had I think over the last probably 5 or 6 years, I've had a strong dose of reality hit me where I've gotten my ass like completely kicked on a couple things that I didn't expect. I didn't expect to at all. So, um, you know, that's that. I kind of tried to have more of a realistic,
mm,
view of things. So, but I just want to have a reasonable chance of finishing. That's all. Not because I'm
mm,
scared if I don't, but just because you know, it would be pretty crazy to shell out a lot of money and go somewhere and then, not really have a realistic chance of finishing. So, um, that's,
oh, that makes sense.
I'd say that's it. But yeah, I'm easily talked into shit at this
That's
point.
You
become
are,
more of a
yes.
consideration in this sport too lately.
Yeah.
I mean, you can spend all the money you want on a race, and and depending on what type of race, the format of the race, it might be raises as you finish it. So that's definitely a consideration, Art, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think also the way things go for me is that like I have a certain tolerance and it's always been this way. I'm not the kind of person who can do the same race every year. It's just not me. I mean, I can do it for a while. Like I did the spring flings and the fall flings
Mm,
and um, you know, Boston Marathon for a while, but like after a while, I'm like, yeah, you know what? I've been there. I've done this. You know,
Yeah, you want to move
I
on.
don't need to do, I don't need to do it again. You know, I've had diminishing, it gets to be diminishing returns. So I look for other, what I've studied it a little bit. It's called success arcs or arcs of success.
I thought you were going
So
to say art, like success arts,
yes,
arts of success. I think
that's
that's
right.
what you should
Like,
call it. Forget about the arc. Say
yeah,
the
like
art,
I know that
like art.
I know that I'm not gonna PR my 5K anymore or my marathon. So
Nonsense.
I look for other things to get excited about. So that might be a 48 hour.
I love it. Art is like, I am
Down for the
proud of
count. That's
you.
it for our. I think he gave his all.
He did, and he talked longer than I thought, and he held it. You made it to mile 95, Art. You
And
couldn't,
then I pulled off to the side and started throwing up.
Oh, that's awesome. So, so Tim, what would you say? I know your one of your main things for this year is to do more hundreds and kind of exceed what you've done in the past. Is there any race that is like top on your list for this year that you're the most excited about or the most nervous about or just
um,
can't wait to go to or
that's a great question. The races that make me the most nervous are 100 milers. Um, uh, the 30 hour. I mean, I'm just very average, and I'm going to get to Sino Canal, and I know I'm going to have to. I'll move all night Saturday night, and at some point it's going to be like, damn, I'm way behind, and when the sun comes up Sunday morning, I'm going to have to bring it to make the finish line. And so 100 mile, I think for me, 100 milers are, whether they're vertical or whether they're flat, the traditional 30-hour 100 always, I mean, it's just, I've always got to kick myself in the ass and throw down to finish that race. I mean, you know, Art and I both did a hamster wheel, and he buried me on the course. I mean, I had to kick it into gear to finish 100 miles in 30 hours there, and so that always gives me trepidation. I mean, I hate saying I'm looking forward to more than one any other race more than others, but I'm really looking forward to the Hots last annual Heart of the South, because you know there's there's
that
going to
sounds really
be.
cool.
I mean, ultra running is the greatest community in the world, and there's tribes within the tribes, and the whole Vol State Hearts tribe, Hots tribe. It's a really cool tribe. I mean, there's just great people in it, and I'm going to go down there and I'm going to give that race. I can't wait to do that race because I'm going to give it everything I've got and see what I can do on the course. And I'm confident I'll finish it, but it's going to be a wild adventure. I mean, it's like, it doesn't sound like a wild adventure, but you can miss a turn and you can add six
Does.
miles to your course just
Oh,
by
totally sounds like
having
it.
a moment where you're like, I only got 2 hours of sleep the night before and I wasn't paying attention. I mean, you'd be amazed at some of the people that have gone off course on that race and have added to their course. You'd be like, there's no way that guy did that or that woman did that. But yeah, they absolutely did it because they weren't paying attention. So I'm really looking forward to that. I mean, I'm looking forward to 6 days at the fair just because you get out there and it's just a big long grind fest. I love the longer multi-day races. They're not traditional stage races or anything like that, but I love being out in the course. But last year at Vol State, after the first, I remember I took a nap at like friggin' what I was coming up on Mackenzie, which is mile 62, and there was a Road Angel aid station. Never been there before. I sat down for 20 minutes in the chair. This is like 5 in the morning, and I woke up 20 minutes later, and the sun was coming up. I'm like, where the actual hell am I, and how did I get here? And then I was like, oh damn, I'm in Vol State, and I'm like barely into the end of day one. It's like, oh my god, I got 6 or 7 more days out here. But
Oh,
I
see.
love
Now here I
multi-day
was
race
thinking
formats.
I was thinking that you were waking up saying, "Oh, where am I at the course?" I love that you woke up and were like, "Where am I? Oh,
Oh,
wait, I'm in
it's
a
not just on
I'm
the
in a
course. It's like,
race."
where the hell am I in the world right now? Because
Yeah,
you're up
that's
moving
so
all night, and
great.
you're like all the. It got to the point where you're so exhausted, you're so spent. Like when you fall asleep for 20 minutes, all the synapses have just. It's like rebooting your computer. There's nothing left, and you wake up. It's like, where am I? And it's
And
like, oh
what? Where
damn.
am
Yeah.
I? And why am I? Where am I?
It's
And why
like
am I wearing
I
this
recognize
dress?
that road. I'm on the Vol State courts. Crap. But no, I love the multi-day races, and I signed up for the Fools 420, which crosses all of upstate New York. But I'm not sure if I have enough PTO for that, so it may just be a weekend doing the 226 miler for that. I mean,
The Fool's 420.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
So is that different than, oh, because I see last year you did the Fool's Ultra. Wait,
yeah,
so this is
I
the
did
Fool's Ultra,
last
the Fool's
year.
200.
Last year I did the
Niagara
Fools
Falls.
200. A guy named Joshua Swink stood up the Fools 400 and the 200 and the 100, and he's a Vol State. He's a Vol State veteran. He's also a veteran in the Army, and he 2 years ago I did the Fools 414. It was across all of upstate New York. He added 6 miles to that, so it's the Fools 420, and it's an unbelievable adventure. But it's like
Wow.
doing Vol State before anybody knew Vol State was out there. You cross all of upstate New York from Niagara Falls to Lake
Oh,
Champlain. And I mean,
I
to finish the race, you go up and over and through the Adirondacks. I mean, it's a serious race. So I've got that in my schedule too. It's like, but I only have so much permissive time off. But yeah, who knows? I mean, I'll figure it out.
I
So
I just for everyone, please look up this race on Ultra Sign Up because I just looked it up and the
nobody
picture
knows
that
about
comes
it.
up,
Almost nobody knows
it's
about it.
well, what's hysterical is the picture that comes up on Ultra Sign Up. It is this person asleep on a couch
Yeah, that's a new
that
picture.
was
You know who that
clearly
person
put
is?
out in the middle of the woods and it's like a trashed couch.
You know who that
Who is
person
it?
is? John Giesler.
Oh, that's Giesler. Yeah.
Oh,
That's Giesler. Yeah, he
this is a really funny
last year doing
picture.
the 414, he came across that couch on day 2 or day 3 and just fell on it and went to sleep. And Swink was driving he's the race director and he has the van that pulls people off the course. And he was looking for John on the course because John doesn't have a lot of technology with him as far as cell phones and stuff. And he found Giesler and took that picture there, and he turned it into the race picture for sure. So, but yeah, Giesler's done
Wow.
the race. Like he did the 414 2 years ago that he and I both did. He came in first, and I came in second. And that tells you how many people are not in the race if I'm coming in second. But last year we both did the 200-mile version of it. He came in first, set the 200-mile course record. I came in second, but Josh wants to grow the race, and I mean, it literally you're literally standing at Niagara Falls, and then you head east
So
across all of
neat.
upstate New York. It's really cool, and it's kind of hard.
Wow.
It's kind of hard because nothing in New York is open after 9 o'clock at night, unless
Well,
it's a restaurant or a bar.
Tim, wasn't there like didn't you have to kayak across something or
Sure,
something?
that's a great point, Fred. There's a no BS water crossing on this course, and it's still we did it last year too. At mile 97, you've gone past you've moved almost all the way across western New York. You've crossed Rochester to your south, and you're crossing Irondequoit Bay. And there's a bridge that crosses Irondequoit Bay. It's a vehicle bridge. It's a drawbridge, but in the summer they just turn it so the waterways open from Lake Ontario into Irondequoit Bay, and it's a river crossing, and we have it worked out. I've been the guy that ran the river crossing the 2 years we've done it. I brought my two kayaks to it. There's a marina. We station them on the west side of the marina, and when someone's coming up to the to the crossing, we paddle the kayaks across. You get in a kayak, and someone from the race paddles across the opening with you. I mean, it's not a creek. I mean, it's you cross a waterway that that goes from Lake Ontario into Irondequoit Bay. Giant yachts cross it. I mean, you're paddling for 200 yards to cross it. By the time you get to the marina on the other side of the bay, it's a no BS water crossing. It's not like crossing the American River in a boat on a rope in Western states. I mean, you're paddling across the mouth of the Irondequoit Bay. It's like, wow, this is something.
I know
So
some, I know
you
some
have to
people
do
that can
that.
paddle.
That's a mile 97. Everybody does it. It's fun. The 2 nights I've done it been at like friggin' midnight, like paddling across. Like, hopefully no one's coming blasting out of the lake in their giant yacht. It's funny. We're still looking around for somebody with a boat that wants to do it and man it, but we haven't found anybody to man it. So it's my 2 kayaks and away we go. We do provide life vests though.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's a no BS water crossing, and it's. I mean, the race starts the middle of September and ends the end of September. You can't swim across; it's too cold. So, I mean, you could if you're really hardcore, but too hardcore for me.
Doesn't
Me
look like
too.
a good idea to me to swim
Yeah,
across that.
it's seriously. You would have to look hard in the whole sport. It's not well known, Fred, but you would have to look hard in the whole sport of ultra running to find a more stringent water crossing. I mean, you're crossing a waterway where giant boats will cruise through there that can fit because that bridge it just turns. They just turn it, but it's like a 96-foot bridge. They just turn it sideways and open up the waterway and leave it open all summer for boats to blast in and out of there. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, it's so scary. I feel like I'd be so weak I wouldn't be able to like row my kayak or canoe or whatever
It's
I
funny.
was using.
You row a kayak right across there. You do. If the water's choppy, you're bouncing all over the place. It's like, Jesus, good God. But you have a life vest, so if you tip your kayak over, the other guy pulls you along
Yeah,
and
you'll
you're
just
okay.
float on up the shore, Becky. You'd be fine.
Yep. Water's
Yeah,
about 52 degrees.
Yeah.
It's all good.
nice and warm.
Yep.
Perfect. I love it.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. This is so exciting. I feel like I've learned so much from you tonight. I love I have to say I love your your three factors that you use towards uh turn
Well,
deciding your
that
races.
that was
I
this year.
can
I mean, that was this year to get in as many races as I could get
yeah.
in. It's like I got to figure out how to make this workable. I mean, when I first got
Yeah.
into this sport, I was consumed with the thought of going out to Badwater until I went out there and ran it. And I think I'm still paying for that somewhere. But but it was an unbelievable adventure. But that doesn't fit this year's criteria. I
Yeah.
mean, if I lived in
But
Southern California,
it's
I'd be out there crewing it every year and maybe trying to do it. But it's like it does, that doesn't fit into the criteria where you're trying to run as many races as you can in one year, kind of a thing.
yeah.
Yeah, unless you hit the
No, I
lottery or
agree.
something. So
Do you know kind of a side topic? I mean, it's still related to running, but this keeps popping in my head. And it's just so funny. I was talking to someone that I work with that I don't usually see anymore because we work in different departments. And it's a typical question of, friends that, I don't see often, when we get together, they'll ask, so have you been running? And, and I'll
right,
be, yeah. And it always is the people that really aren't athletic, that just don't do much sports, aren't, not just not running, but they're just not, which whatever, that's fine. That will say, so it's really good, but how are your knees? And I'm like, they're they're fine. And they're like, are you sure? Like, what's your back like? And it's just it it's always such a funny thing because like I said to this person, I was like, I'm like, knock on wood, and I don't really have anything. I'm like, and for the most part, I'm like, I have to say, I have a lot of crazy friends that do this stuff. I said, and unless it's, someone that just is just known to just they can't stop, and they will try and run through every injury until they, beat themselves up, to the point where they can't move. I'm like, it I don't feel like there's a lot of people in this sport who are like, oh, I'm still running, but man, my knees are so bad. Oh, my back is so bad. Like I just I don't see it. But maybe we know what we're doing, or it's just in the people that I do see that will say, oh, I have these, these different injuries. Either they're a lot of times they're injuries that started from playing a different sport, like a soccer or a football or something, and it's an injury that they had from a while ago that flares up, or somebody just getting into it that's like, I'm going to start running here. I'm going to wear my tennis shoes and I'm going to run 50 miles this week on sidewalks. But it just always it it always throws me when when people ask those things, even though I know to expect it, but when they also like kind of don't believe me and they're like, no, like you just don't realize how much damage you're doing to your body. And I'm like, I I I really don't like, if I was, then I would stop and go see a PT or go whatever. Like I wouldn't just keep, you know, but I don't know. It just, as we talk about all these different races and stuff, and multi-day and
It's a
stuff,
great
it's
topic.
it's
It's a great topic. I mean, there's two. You're so right, Becky. There's two things people always bring up. The first is, why the hell would you do it? And the second is generally, it's how do you do it? It's like how do your knees feel, or this or that? And I I I'm not in great shape because I don't do as much total body training as I should. I kind of gravitated more towards my comfort zone where every night I'll put on my pack and I'll go out and I'll get miles in. But, I know I should be on my TRX at least 4 or 5 days a week. And it's usually more 1 or 2 days a week. So I've had some things flare up that, a year and a half ago, I was running the Beast of Burden Winter in upstate New York. And I got to the turnaround at mile 12 and a half, and I'm coming out and think I'm running a great pace. And suddenly I couldn't bend my knee. It just wouldn't bend. And I mean, it was like I literally could not bend my right knee. And I was like, well, that's a little disconcerting, and I was moving at a faster pace than maybe I trained at, and this and that, because it's a 100 miler, 30 hours, and I had DNF in that race, and I was working through that. My knee would seem like it'd get better. There were no sharp pains, and then I'd be out there. Every night I'm out there moving, and my knee would lock up, and I finally went to the doctor, and um, Syracuse Orthopedics, by the way, and I get this young doctor who does triathlons, and he's just looking at me. He's like, dude, it's just what you were talking about, Becky. I played, high school and college football, and at one point I had done stuff to my right knee, and it was really inflamed, and it was all swollen up. And he's like, I mean, this dude's literally a 40-year-old doctor. He's like, dude, you have so much scar tissue in there. You have you, your knee is all locked up because you have arthritis in your knee. Duh. It's like, and I'd waited 3 months to go in there and look at, talk to the guy. But I mean, I hadn't had that issue, and I'm not young. There's a lot of, that was a year and a half ago. There's a lot of calendar in the rearview mirror. So, I work through that all the time, and I don't have a full prescription, but every once in a while I go in and get this amount of stuff from the guy and come back and my knee feels great. But I've had people say that to me. Oh, I'd be doing ultras too, but my knees are bothering me. And these are people in the Army that are officers, and I want to say to them, your knees wouldn't be bothering you if you weren't carrying 30 pounds you shouldn't be carrying. This sport has kept
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I'm not in great shape, but it's kept me. I weigh about what I weigh when I joined the Army in
Bless you.
1991. I mean, it's helped me keep that weight off. And if
Yeah,
I didn't,
yeah,
if I wasn't doing this sport and getting miles in, I mean, today is day
absolutely.
66,265. If I wasn't out getting miles in every night with
Wow.
Rusty, I'd be 30 pounds overweight and I wouldn't be able to do this sport because, at that point, my knees wouldn't be working right because I'd be carrying too much weight. So this sport keeps you younger. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, you get out there and you run a marathon or you run a 100 miler. A great reason to do it is because it wipes out what everybody calls as the zombie cells in your body now. All the bad
Yeah.
cells in your body devours those first. I mean, there's real science for that. So, I mean, that's one of the things I always ask you: how are your knees holding up, and why do you do it? Why would you do something like that to yourself? And
Yeah.
to me, that answer's easy. It's like I want to know what I'm capable of. I've always it's like, can I do that? I've always asked myself that. Could I actually play football in pads? Could I actually join the army and be an airborne ranger? Can I do that? Can I run a marathon? Can I run an ultra? What? And now it
Mm,
just turns into, what can I do this weekend? And you get to measure yourself and see what you're capable of. And most people never really, most people don't run an ultra, so they don't know what they're really capable of or not. But it's what we evolved
right.
to do. It's what we evolved as a species, unless you believe ancient aliens, which is a whole different discussion. But we evolved as a species to be persistent hunters, to move for long periods of time on our feet. That's what we evolved to do. And I
Yeah,
just like to see what I'm capable of. And this sport gives you the chance to do that all the time. And it's
absolutely.
beautiful.
Right on.
It is.
Hey, Tim, that's such a great message that you brought us tonight. So, while I have my voice here, I just want to take a moment and say thank you very much for coming out and kind of sharing some of your stories from Vol State, from HOTS, from the Cut 112, from the fair, from all these other
From
timed
all of it.
races that you've done, and also helping people maybe get some organization around the races that they choose to do. So I think that's a great message, and thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on, guys. I appreciate Art. You guys all need to come out. I'm going to send you invitations. Come out to Green Lakes this summer. Come
I
out
was
and do
just
our
going to say,
race.
Yeah.
before we go,
Thank you,
we should
guys.
say Tim is the race director of the Green Lakes Endurance Run, GLUR.
Yep.
I saw on
Wow. Oh,
Facebook a
and
really
I've never
nice
done that.
coffee mug that had Green Lakes on it, right? That
Yep.
looked nice. So it's
Yep.
50K and 50 miles, Tim, is that what you got?
We've got a 50K race. We've always had a 50K and a 100K. We added the 25K, and this year we added the 12-hour event,
Oh, really? Okay.
the
All right.
Ooh.
clear Gale Force 12-hour, and it's a completely separate course from the 100K and the 50K. And I've been doing this race since 2013 because I'd done it a couple times, and I went to run it in 2012, and it was like the race had gone away because the race director had disappeared. So I've been doing it since then, and I've always been pinging Green Lake State Park to let me add a 100-mile race,
Hmm.
and this is the first park director that did not say no. So I'm still trying to make that happen, but that may or may not happen. But we'll see. But we've got a 100K, a 50K. It's an awesome race. You guys should all come out. I'm going to send you. I'm going to send
Very
you
good.
To
invitations.
put a
Yeah,
culture connection on that, one year, our own Ellie Pell won that race.
She did. She won the 50K outright three or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Outright, beat everybody in the race. In fact, I got to
Nice.
invite her back too because
Yeah, I'm looking up
she
this
hasn't done it
race
in a while.
now.
Yep.
It looks very cool. I it needs to be a crew road trip.
Yeah.
Crew
Yeah,
Agreed.
road
come
trip,
out
crew road
for
I'm up
trip.
sure.
for that. So,
Yeah.
so Becky, also special thanks to you and to Fred also for picking up the slack as I'm down here. So I really do appreciate that.
All right.
So,
Also,
Well, we
before
poisoned
before
your
we
water,
hang up,
so
before we hang this one up,
put
Odendal
lipstick on the pig.
Odendal texted me while we were talking and said, say something about Warmog. I want everybody to sign up for it. So apparently he still has some availability for Warmog. So everybody sign up for Lake Warmog.
there you go.
Yes, I randomly sent him while I was running a couple days ago a neat idea, but I did it talk to text, which is always a disaster because whenever you do a talk to text message, it doesn't it's mumbo jumbo. So Bill, you probably were like, "What is this?" But it's a good idea. We'll talk. And it has to do with Warmog. So, but yes, come and do Lake Warmog. Come and race it. If you're not racing it, come and support. Maybe you'll even be lucky enough to be part of the aid station at the Cultra aid station, which is always a fun time.
Oh,
It
by the way,
is.
you'll get to meet my older sister too. She's running this year.
Mercedes?
Wow.
Mercedes is running it. Yep.
Oh my
Woo-wee.
gosh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yay.
That is pretty awesome.
And
That's great.
look into this race too. Green Lakes.
Green
I'm
Lakes
very
Endurance
excited.
Run. Yep.
Yes, Saturday, August 23rd.
Go.
We
All
got to get
right.
Thank
on
you
this.
guys. Thanks for having me on.
There. You
Thanks
got
for
it.
All right,
Okay,
listening.
thank you so
Good to see you,
much.
Tim. I'll see you at the fair.
to
Sounds
all of our
good.
listeners
Take
out
care.
there, thank you everybody for listening. If you've made it this far, of course, seek professional help, and we will see you all in a mile.
Mile and a
Mile and a
half.
half.
All right.
And
You know,
that's a
this is a
wrap.
therapy pickle.
Oh, it
Is it?
is.
All right.
There you
Yeah,
go.
you know,
Okay.
like they have like those therapy chickens.
Yep.
Like
Everybody should
the
have a therapy pickle.
yes, it literally is a therapy pickle.
Okay.
All
Everybody
right.
needs a therapy pickle. Anyways,
Okay.
so thank you so much, Tim. And you know what, Tim, before you go, just quick, did anybody else realize how much Tim looks like damn it, now I just forgot his name. The comedian, the really funny comedian with the red hair. Um, no. And he's got
Um,
like six kids. He's really funny, and a lot of times when he says his
Danny
jokes, he'll like
Partridge.
whisper. Oh, who is the
Oh, I
comedian?
know who you're
Partridge.
talking about. Uh, he doesn't have red hair, does he?
Yes, very red hair. I'm literally putting in funny comedian
I know who
with
you.
red hair.
I know who you're talking about.
Where is
They're gonna
he?
put Carrot Top up. It's gonna be like #1,
Oh
right?
gosh, no. No, why is it? What is his name? It's coming up with
Not Jim
somebody named
Gaffigan,
Jim.
who has blonde hair.
Yes,
He has blonde hair.
yes,
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah.
Oh, well, Tim, you look like Jim Gaffigan, which is
Except,
a compliment.
yeah, except Jim Gaffigan's kind of like a, big guy.
Well, it's his face.
Oh, his face. Okay.
Just
Yeah.
just the face. Just the face.
When
So
when the
anyways.
Ultralist was more vibrant, people used to refer to Tim Hardy as that really handsome guy who runs Ultras. So
Ooh,
yeah.
nice. Like it.
Great.